blade pressed against my throat hard enough to draw blood. I didn't move. The cavalry warrior holding it vibrated with barely contained rage, her chitinous plates shifting through colors I'd learned meant lethal intent, purple to crimson, crimson to black. You will address the queen properly, human filth. I kept my eyes forward, locked on the massive figure seated on the obsidian throne. Queen Jara, supreme matriarch of the Cavalry Dominion, ruler of 17 conquered worlds. Her forearms rested on the throne's edges, each hand tipped with claws that could slice through steel. Behind her crystalline helmet, 6 eyes studied me with the cold calculation of a predator deciding whether prey was worth the effort of killing. The throne room stretched vast and empty around us. No other guards, no witnesses, just me, the warrior at my back, and the queen who'd ordered the extinction of my entire colony. 3 months ago, I'd watched from orbit as Cavalry warships glassed New Terra. 2 million people, gone in fire and light. I'd been on a supply run, returning to find nothing but cooling slag where my home had been, where my daughter had been. The Empire had surrendered within weeks. Humanity's first and only extrasolar colony erased. Terms of peace, total submission, our weapons dismantled, our ships grounded, our people scattered across Cavari-controlled space as laborers, servants, curiosities. I'd volunteered for palace duty, worked my way close through months of silent servitude. Nobody questioned the broken human who cleaned floors and fetched water. Nobody noticed when I started mapping guard rotations, security protocols, the Queen's daily patterns. Today, the moment had finally come. An audience chamber left unguarded due to a shift change I'd carefully arranged. The Queen alone, reviewing reports. Me summoned to deliver refreshments. The poisoned blade hidden in my sleeve had been 3 inches from her throat when the warrior burst through the side entrance. Wrong shift. Wrong timing. Everything wrong. Now I was going to die without even scratching the monster who'd murdered my child. Your designation, the Queen said. Her voice resonated through translation implants, carrying harmonics that made human bones ache. Speak it. 7743. The words tasted like ash. No. One of her hands made a gesture I didn't recognize. Your name. The one your hatchling called you. My blood went cold. How did she... Sarah Chen. The Queen stood. 8 feet of armored nightmare, moving with predatory grace toward me. Xenobotanist. Widow, mother of 1. She stopped 3 feet away, close enough to kill me with a casual swipe. I know why you are here. The blade in my throat pressed harder. I felt blood trickle down my neck. I know you orchestrated the guard rotation disruption. I know about the poison synthesized from plants in the palace garden. I know you have been waiting months for this moment. The Queen's head tilted. I allowed it. The words didn't make sense. What? Your species fascinates me, Sarah Chen.
You are weak, fragile.
Your lifespans are brief, your technology primitive, your combat capabilities laughable. Yet when I read the reports of New Terra's final hours, do you know what I found? Your people did not scatter, did not surrender. They gathered their hatchlings and elderly into the deepest shelters they could find. Then every able adult armed themselves with whatever they could carry and formed perimeter lines around those shelters. They knew they would die. They knew the shelters would not save anyone. They fought anyway to buy their loved ones a few more moments of life. I could see my reflection in her helmet, distorted and small. The Cavari have conquered 63 species across 82 worlds. Not one fought like humans fought. Not one showed such desperate, futile, beautiful defiance. I ordered your colony destroyed to test a hypothesis, to see if human courage was circumstantial or fundamental. Her head tilted further. You have answered that question. My daughter was 6 years old. My voice cracked. She liked drawing flowers. She was scared of the dark. She died instantly in the first strike. Felt no pain. The Queen straightened. I offer you this knowledge as a gift before I make my offer. I don't want anything from you except to watch you die. Then you will be disappointed. She turned, walking back to her throne. Lower your weapon, Jakara. The blade withdrew from my throat. The warrior stepped back, confusion radiating from her shifting plates. The Queen settled onto her throne. The Cavalry Empire spans 117 worlds. Our military is unmatched. Our technology supreme. We have never known defeat. She paused. We are also dying. I blinked. What? Genetic degradation. Our scientists estimate 4 generations until sterility becomes universal, 5 until extinction. Her claws clicked against stone. We have tried everything. Cloning, genetic manipulation, cross-species hybridization. Nothing works. We are a dead race that has not yet stopped breathing. Good, I said. She made a sound like grinding metal. Laughter, I realized. Kavari laughter. Yes. Good. We deserve this fate. We have been conquerors and destroyers. We have earned oblivion. She leaned forward, but I find myself unwilling to accept it. So I have studied the species we have subjugated, searching for something we lack, something that might save us. And you think humans... Your spirit. She gestured to the room around us. Do you know how many assassination attempts I have survived? 417. From enemies, rivals, even my own offspring. It is expected. Traditional. None of those assassins did so out of love. Out of grief. Out of desperate need to balance scales that can never be balanced. Descended from the throne. Stopped directly in front of me. You are the first being in 300 years to make me feel something other than contempt. Your rage is pure. Your pain is real. Your determination to destroy me regardless of cost speaks to something I thought lost to my species. She extended one massive hand. I have a proposition. I stared at the offered hand. Alien. Monstrous. Stained with the blood of millions. I don't care about your problems. You will. Because my proposition involves the resurrection of New Terra. Full colonial rights restored. Technology shared. Reparations paid. 100,000 humans returned to their homeworld, given everything needed to rebuild. My heart stopped. Started again. Hammering. In exchange, you will do something very simple. The Queen's eyes fixed on mine. You will teach my people how to care. That's insane. Yes. It is also our only hope. She lowered her hand. The Kaveri have optimized for conquest, for efficiency, for power. We have forgotten what you demonstrated in your final hours. The willingness to sacrifice everything for those we love. We do not love our hatchlings, Sarah Chen. We incubate them. We train them. We discard the weak and promote the strong. It has made us formidable. It has also made us hollow. You want me to, what? Teach you to be human? I want you to show us what we have lost, what we destroyed when we destroyed New Terra. I want my people to understand what they are fighting for instead of merely what they are fighting against. She turned away. Or you may refuse.
Tell me now.
Chikara will kill you immediately after. Humanity will remain enslaved. New Terra will remain glass. And in 5 generations, both our species will be extinct. Choose. I looked at my hands. They were shaking. Months of planning, months of rage, carefully compressed into diamond-hard purpose, all of it suddenly meaningless against an offer I couldn't possibly accept, couldn't possibly refuse. Why me? The question came out barely louder than a whisper. Because you tried to kill me out of love. Because you understand the price of what was taken. Because when I look at you, I see what the Kavari have never been, and what we must become if we are to survive. The Queen's voice softened almost imperceptibly. Because you are a mother who lost everything and still found the strength to seek justice. That is the spirit we need. Her drawings covering our apartment walls, the way she'd hug me before bed and whisper that she loved me more than all the stars. I thought of 2 million people who died because this creature wanted to run an experiment. I thought of 100,000 humans who might live if I swallowed my rage and did the impossible. If I do this, I said slowly, I want something else, something you won't like. Name it. I want every Kavari child to know what you did to New Terra. I want it taught in your schools. I want the truth preserved forever. No historical revision. No political softening. The full weight of your crime, remembered for as long as your species exists. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then, agreed. Anything else? Yes. I met her 6-eyed gaze. I want to hear you say it. All of it. What you took from me. The Queen's plates shifted colors. Not rage this time. Something else. Something that might have been respect. I ordered the destruction of New Terra. I authorized the death of your daughter, Mei Chen, age 6. I extinguished 2 million lives to satisfy my curiosity about human resilience. I committed genocide. I am responsible. She paused. And I will carry this crime for the remainder of my life. knowing that justice would be your blade in my throat and mercy is your willingness to build something better from the ashes of my atrocity. My eyes burned. I wouldn't cry. Not here. Not now. I'll do it, I said. Not for you. For the people who might live because of this. For the future my daughter won't see, but maybe someone else's child will. That is all I ask. I turned to leave, made it 3 steps before the Queen's voice stopped me. Sarah Chen, one more thing. The Queen reached up and, with careful deliberation, removed her helmet. Beneath it, her face was unexpectedly delicate, scarred, ancient. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes carried weight I recognized. Grief, real and raw and drowning. I had a daughter once, she said quietly. Killed by rivals when she showed weakness. Compassion? Love. I did not stop them because I believed strength was all that mattered. I have regretted that choice every day for 90 years. She replaced the helmet. Teach us better, please. I left without answering. There was nothing to say to that. Nothing that wouldn't crack the fragile shell I'd built around my pain. Outside, the palace corridors stretched bright and cold. Kavari servants and guards watched me pass with curious eyes. The human who'd somehow walked into the Queen's presence and walked back out alive. I didn't know if I'd made the right choice. Didn't know if redemption was possible for either of our species. Didn't know if I could survive teaching love to the beings who'd murdered everyone I loved. But I knew my daughter would have wanted me to try. She'd always believed people could be better. Could learn, could change. Even monsters. Especially monsters. I touched the blood drying on my throat and wondered if hope was another word for madness. Then I kept walking, one step at a time, into an impossible future. The education center smelled wrong. Too clean. Too sterile. No scuff marks on floors from children's feet. No artwork on walls. No laughter echoing through corridors. Just pristine white surfaces and the clinical efficiency the Kavari brought to everything, including child-rearing. I stood in the observation room watching 30 Kavari juveniles through one-way glass. They sat in perfect rows at individual stations, working through tactical simulations on holographic displays. 12 years old by human standards, but already trained in 17 methods of killing. Already fluent in 6 languages, already capable of calculating orbital mechanics in their heads, also completely unable to work together, share resources, or show even basic empathy. They are performing adequately, the facility director said beside me. Katara, a smaller Kavari, only 7 feet tall, her plates a muted gray that suggested bureaucratic seniority rather than combat prowess. Cognitive development is on schedule. Physical conditioning exceeds baseline. We anticipate 60% will survive to maturity. I'd spent 2 weeks reviewing Kavari child-rearing practices, communal incubation chambers where eggs were kept at optimal temperature and nothing else. Hatchlings fed efficiently calculated nutrients, education focused entirely on useful skills, competition encouraged, weakness punished. The bottom 40% eliminated through deliberate neglect. They called it natural selection. I called it murder. What happens to the 40% who don't survive, I asked, though I already knew. They are composted, returned to the ecological cycle. Very efficient. Right. Efficient. Kathara's head tilted. You object to this practice. I object to treating children like production units in a factory. But that is what they are. Resources to be optimized. The strong survive, the weak do not. This has served the Kavari for 10,000 years. And how's that working out? I turned to face her. You're going extinct. Your birth rate is plummeting. Your genetic health is collapsing. Maybe your system isn't as optimal as you think. Tara's plates flickered through colors I hadn't learned yet. The Queen said you would be difficult. She said this was desirable. The Queen wants me to teach your species how to care about each other. Can't do that if I pretend your current approach isn't fundamentally broken. Then how would you change it? I looked back at the juveniles. One had completed her simulation early and sat motionless, waiting for permission to proceed. Another struggled with a complex problem, plates shifting with stress, but the juveniles on either side ignored her completely. No helping. No collaboration. Just isolated units pursuing individual optimization. First thing, tear down these barriers between stations. Let them talk to each other, work together. Learn that other people aren't just competition, they're potential allies. That would reduce individual performance metrics. Maybe. Or maybe it would teach them skills your metrics don't measure, like cooperation, trust, the ability to function as something more than a collection of isolated warriors. Katara made a sound like grinding stone. Skepticism. And this would benefit the Kavari how? I thought about how to explain, how to make an alien bureaucrat understand concepts her species had spent millennia optimizing away. Tell me about Kavari military tactics, I said finally. We employ overwhelming force at identified weak points. Concentrate superior numbers and firepower to achieve breakthrough, then exploit penetration to fragment enemy cohesion. Standard doctrine.
You're really good at breaking things. But what happens when you need to build?
When you need to maintain complex systems, when you need people who can work together toward long-term goals instead of just smashing whatever's in front of them, who also compete more than they collaborate, who also treat empathy as weakness. I gestured toward the juveniles. You've built an entire civilization around individual excellence and brutal competition. It made you powerful. It also made you brittle. One big problem your standard approach can't solve, and your entire species is facing extinction. Katara was silent for a moment. The Queen believes this is such a problem. The Queen is right. You can't fight your way out of genetic degradation. Can't intimidate your DNA into functioning properly. Can't conquer biology through superior firepower.
You need something different. Something you've systematically bred out of your species.
Love. Katara said the word like she was tasting something unfamiliar. The Queen used this term. Explained it as irrational attachment to specific individuals regardless of utility, highly inefficient, also the foundation of every stable society humanity ever built. We take care of our children not because they're useful, but because they're ours. We form bonds not because it's optimal, but because we're wired to connect. We sacrifice for each other not because the math works out, but because we can't imagine doing anything else. This makes you weak. Sometimes, it also makes us resilient. Adaptable. Capable of surviving circumstances that would shatter a purely competitive society. I met her eyes. New Terra was dying when your ships arrived. We knew it. We fought anyway. Not because we thought we'd win. Because we couldn't abandon each other. That's what love does. It makes you fight impossible battles for people who matter to you. Katara turned back to the window, watched her charges working in isolated silence. Love is not a skill that can be taught through curriculum.
No, but it can be modeled.
Demonstrated. Practiced. I pulled out the tablet I'd brought. I've designed a pilot program. 30 juveniles. No eliminations. No rankings. No competition for resources. Instead, we teach them to work together, to support each other, to understand that their success is tied to the group's success. That's the point. I pulled up the detailed curriculum. We start small. Shared meals instead of individual feeding stations, group projects instead of solo work, deliberate pairing of strong performers with struggling ones, with rewards based on collective improvement rather than individual achievement. The traditionalists will resist. This approach violates core Kavari principles. This is necessary. If the juveniles become weak, dependent, unable to survive standard Kavari society, then we adjust, iterate, find a balance between your strength and what you've lost. I paused. But I don't think it will fail. I think you're going to discover that cooperation doesn't replace competition. It enhances it. That caring about others doesn't make you weak. It gives you something worth being strong for. Katara handed back the tablet. The Queen warned me you would attempt radical reformation, told me to allow it despite my reservations. She must trust you considerably. She trusts that I understand what's at stake for both our species. I looked at the juveniles again. One had finally asked for help, hesitant and uncertain. The juvenile beside her had ignored the request completely, too focused on her own work. We're running out of time. Your species is dying, mine is enslaved. We either figure out how to be better than we've been, or we both go extinct. Pretty simple math. Nothing about this is simple. No, I agreed, but it's necessary, so we do it anyway. Katara's plates shifted through colors that might have been resignation or might have been hope. Hard to tell with Kavari expressions. When do you wish to begin? Tomorrow. I want to meet the juveniles. Talk to them. Start building relationships. They will not understand the concept of relationship. They are trained to interact transactionally. Then that's what we change first. I turned toward the door. Get me a list of the 30 lowest performing juveniles, the ones who'd normally be eliminated. We start with them. Why the weakest? And because proving that the bottom 40% can succeed if given support instead of neglect will demonstrate the program's value better than anything else. You realize this will be seen as favoritism toward inferior specimens. Many will object. The Queen wants results. I'll deliver results. How I do that is my concern. We walked through corridors filled with purpose-built efficiency. Everything optimized, nothing wasted. No space for anything that didn't serve immediate practical function. It was impressive in its own cold way. Also profoundly lonely. Can I ask you something? Katara said after a moment.
Sure.
For what we did to your world. I stopped walking. Considered the question. Yes, every single day. Every single moment. I wake up hating you. I go to sleep hating you. I hate that I'm here instead of dead with my daughter. I hate that I'm trying to save the species that murdered her. Then why do this? Why help us? Because hate isn't enough. It's not a foundation for anything except more destruction. And because there are 100,000 humans who get to live, if I succeed. Children who get to grow up, families who stay together, that matters more than my personal need for revenge. This is love? Sacrificing your satisfaction for others' benefit? Part of it. Love means putting someone else's needs ahead of your own. It means caring about their future even when you won't be there to see it. It means building something bigger than yourself. I started walking again. It's also the hardest thing he'll ever do, especially when you're doing it for people you have every reason to despise. I am beginning to understand why the Queen chose you. Yeah? Why's that? Because you embody the contradiction at the heart of this endeavor? You hate us enough to have tried killing the Queen. You love humanity enough to help us anyway. You are living proof that emotions need not be simple to be powerful. Bitter and sharp. That's one way to look at it. Another way is that I'm a broken woman making impossible choices because the alternative is giving up. Not sure there's anything noble about that. Perhaps nobility lies not in the absence of brokenness, but in the choice to build despite it. I glanced at Katara. That's surprisingly philosophical for a bureaucrat. Attempting to understand your species' perspective. There's a poet, Mary Oliver, who wrote about the wild geese. About how you do not have to be good or walk on your knees repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Her plates shifted. I find this concept both alien and compelling. Mary Oliver understood some things. We reached the facility's main entrance. Tomorrow morning. I want to meet the juveniles at first light. Be ready. I will arrange it. Katara paused. Sarah Chen, thank you for your willingness to attempt the impossible. Don't thank me yet. We might fail spectacularly. Perhaps. But the attempt itself is valuable. The Queen believes this. I am learning to believe it as well. I left Katara at the entrance and made my way back through the palace complex. Night was falling, the alien sky darkening from violet to deep purple. 3 moons rising in sequence, each casting different colored light. Beautiful and wrong at the same time. My quarters were small but comfortable. The Kavari had tried to make them suitable for human habitation. Earth standard gravity, temperature, atmosphere, pictures on the walls that were someone's algorithmic attempt at human art, close enough to be recognizable, not close enough to be comforting. I sat on the bed and pulled out the one possession I'd managed to keep through everything. A photograph. May at her 6th birthday party, chocolate cake smeared on her face, pure joy in her eyes. The last picture I'd taken before... My hands shook. I put the photograph away before the tears could fall and damage it. Then I cried anyway, quietly, efficiently. The same way I'd cried every night for 3 months. When I was done, I pulled up the curriculum on my tablet and started refining tomorrow's lesson plan. Work was easier than grief. Purpose was easier than pain. Somewhere in the city were 30 Kavari juveniles who'd been marked for death because they weren't strong enough, fast enough, smart enough by their species' brutal standards. Tomorrow, I'd meet them. Start teaching them that weakness wasn't failure, that needing help wasn't shameful, that they could be valuable not despite their limitations, but because of the perspectives those limitations provided. It was insane. Probably impossible. Definitely not what I'd imagined doing with my life when I'd studied xenobotany and dreamed about cataloging alien ecosystems, but it was what I had. The only path forward that didn't end in extinction for both our species. I worked until exhaustion dragged me down into sleep. Dreamed of my daughter. Woke up missing her with an intensity that never dulled. then got up and prepared to teach monsters how to love. Because that was the deal. That was the cost of survival. And I was too stubborn to fail even when every part of me wanted to give up. The 30 juveniles stared at me with compound eyes that showed no obvious emotion. 12 years old. Already scarred from combat training, already fluent in calculating kill probabilities, already utterly alone in ways they didn't even recognize. We were in a reconfigured classroom. I'd had the individual isolation stations removed and replaced with circular tables. 6 juveniles per table, close enough to interact, far enough to not feel threatened. The workers had protested. Katara had overridden them. The Queen's authority backing every change. "My name is Sarah Chen," I said. "I'm human. I'm here to teach you things that aren't part of standard Kavari curriculum."
The 30 juveniles watching.
Waiting for instructions. Programmed to comply with authority. First thing, I want each of you to introduce yourself, not your designation. Your name. If you don't have one beyond your designation, then make one up. Choose something you like. More silence. Then one juvenile in the back raised a claw tentatively. "What is the purpose of this exercise?" "What's your designation? J4492? 4492. The purpose is for you to start thinking of yourselves and each other as individuals, not interchangeable units, actual people with preferences and personalities." The juveniles' plates flickered. "We are juveniles. We do not have personalities until we survive to maturity and earn individual designation. That's what you've been told. I'm telling you differently. You're people right now. Today, not someday if you prove worthy." Already. I gestured to the tables. "So, names. Who wants to go first?" Silence stretched. I let it. Pressure without forcing. Finally, a smaller juvenile in the front spoke. I choose pirate." She said it like she was confessing a crime. "It is the sound of rain on metal. I find this sound pleasant." "That's beautiful, Rika. Thank you." I smiled at her. "Who's next?" Slowly, haltingly, they began choosing names. Some picked sounds they liked. Others chose concepts. One particularly scarred juvenile named himself Jakarn after a predator from Kavari mythology. Another chose Surya, which apparently meant quiet dawn. It took an hour. By the end, 30 juveniles had names, had claimed something for themselves beyond their designated functions. "Good," I said when the last one finished. "Now I want you to do something that's going to feel weird. I want you to introduce yourself to the juveniles at your table. Not just your name. Tell them one thing you're good at and one thing you struggle with. Immediate resistance. Plate shifting through colors that meant discomfort, anxiety, fear. Admitting weakness invites elimination," one of the juveniles said. "Zakarn? The one who'd named himself after a predator. This violates survival protocol." By standard Kavari protocol, showing weakness gets you killed, but you're not in standard protocol anymore. "You're in my program. And in my program, understanding your limitations is the first step toward overcoming them. You wish us to be weak? I wish you to be honest. There's a difference." I pulled up a chair and sat. Eye level with them instead of looming above. "Let me demonstrate. I'm Sarah Chen. I'm good at understanding plant biology and terrible at hand-to-hand combat. If we were in a survival situation on an alien world, I could identify which plants were safe to eat and which would kill you. But if something attacked us, I'd need someone else to do the fighting because I'd be useless." "Then you would be eliminated," another juvenile said. "Mkara." She named herself after a word meaning sharp edge. In a purely competitive system, yeah. I die first. But in a cooperative system, I become valuable. My knowledge of plants keeps the group fed. Someone else's combat skills keep us safe. We survive together by combining our strengths and covering each other's weaknesses. The juveniles exchanged glances. Actual interaction between them. First time I'd seen it. "This is how humans function?" Rika asked. "This is how successful humans function. We're not strong enough to survive alone, so we work together. Form groups, build communities, take care of each other, because we need each other." "But the weak still exists," Jakarn said. "How do you prevent them from consuming resources while providing nothing useful?" The question was so casual, so completely devoid of malice. Just practical calculation about eliminating non-productive members. "Here's what you're missing," I said carefully. "Weakness and strength aren't fixed. Someone who's weak in one area might be strong in another. Someone who struggles today might excel tomorrow. And sometimes the person you think is useless turns out to have exactly the skill you need to survive. I stood and walked to Rika's table. Rika. Kathara told me your tactical simulation scores are in the bottom 5%. True? Rika's plates went pale. Yes. I am slow, inefficient, marked for elimination at next assessment. Now tell me about your pattern recognition scores. They are adequate. 73rd percentile. Better than adequate. You scored higher than anyone else in this room at identifying subtle environmental anomalies, which means in a real combat situation, you'd probably spot an ambush before the so-called tactical geniuses walked right into it. Rika's plates flickered. I had not considered this perspective. That's because you've been taught to measure yourself against a single standard. Fast equals good, slow equals bad. But real situations are complex. They need different skills, different perspectives. A team with nothing but tactical geniuses and no one watching for subtle threats is going to get everyone killed. I addressed the whole room. That's the first lesson.
You are not in competition with each other anymore.
You are a team. Your job is to figure out how each person's strengths can cover another person's weaknesses, how to combine your individual capabilities into something more effective than any of you could be alone. And if someone truly has no useful strengths, Makara asked, then we find them. Develop them. Create them if necessary. I nut her eyes. Nobody is useless. Some people just haven't found their purpose yet. Quote, Zakharan made a skeptical sound. This is naive. Survival requires eliminating weakness. Survival requires adaptation. Intelligence. Flexibility. I turned to him. Your species has survived for 10,000 years through strength and ruthlessness. Now you're going extinct. Your old approach isn't working anymore, so either you adapt or you die. A pretty simple choice. Silence fell. Uncomfortable. Tense. 30 juveniles processing information that contradicted everything they'd been taught. Let's try something, I said finally. A practical exercise. Each table is going to work together to solve a puzzle. It's designed to require multiple skill sets. No one person can solve it alone. You'll need to communicate, collaborate.
Figure out how to use everyone's abilities.
I handed out the puzzle kits. Physical objects that needed to be assembled in specific sequences. Pattern recognition, spatial reasoning, fine motor control, problem solving.
Each one requiring different strengths.
You have 1 hour.
Begin. Immediate and total.
Juveniles accustomed to individual work tried to approach the puzzle alone. Fought over pieces. Competed instead of cooperated. Every table descended into argument within minutes. I didn't intervene. Let them struggle, let them fail. Learning happened in the gap between expectation and reality. Halfway through the hour, one table started making progress. Rika's table. I watched as she hesitantly suggested a pattern she'd noticed. Another juvenile dismissed her. Then a third juvenile tried the pattern anyway and found it worked. Suddenly they were listening to Rika, building on her observations, combining different approaches. 15 minutes later, they completed the puzzle. The other tables noticed, stopped fighting, started trying to figure out what Rika's table had done differently. Talk to each other, Rika called out. Tentative but brave. Listen to everyone's ideas. The answer is not individual, it is collective. I watched cooperation spread, slow. Clumsy, full of mistakes and backtracking. But real. By the end of the hour, 4 tables had completed their puzzles. The other 2 were close. Time, I called. Everybody stop. 30 juveniles looked up, plates showing colors I was learning to read. Excitement, pride. Confusion about feeling pride for group achievement instead of individual success. What did you learn? I asked. Rika spoke first. That listening is tactical advantage. That strength takes multiple forms, another juvenile added. Crush. He'd named himself after a word meaning steady foundation. That I am not as useless as I believed, a third said quietly. Vasha. She'd chosen silence as her name. Good.
All good. I looked at the 2 tables who hadn't finished. And you?
What did you learn? Jakarn spoke for his table. That pride prevents learning. We wanted to solve the puzzle our way. We ignored solutions that did not originate from the strongest members. This was an error. Recognizing your mistakes is harder than celebrating success. I addressed the whole room. This is what we're going to do for the next several months. Learn to work together, build trust. Understand that your value isn't just what you can do alone, but what you enable others to do. Questions? What happens when we return to standard society, when cooperation is seen as weakness again? change standard society, make cooperation valuable instead of suspect. But that's going to take time. For now, we focus on you, on building something new. I paused. You're pioneers, the first cavalry in 10,000 years to try a different way. That's terrifying. It's also important. You're going to prove that there's another path, one that doesn't require eliminating 40% of your population to maintain standards. And if we fail? Visha asked. Then we learn from the failure and try again. That's what humans do. We fail constantly. It's actually one of our strengths. We're really good at messing up, figuring out why, and trying something different. This is a strength? Sarkhan sounded dubious. Absolutely. Species that can't tolerate failure can't experiment, can't adapt, can't evolve. I smiled. You know what humanity's greatest accomplishment is? Not our technology or our art or our philosophy. It's our ability to try stupid things, survive the consequences, and turn the lessons learned into something useful. That got a ripple of reaction, colors shifting through patterns that might have been amusement. Tomorrow we start daily sessions. 2 hours every morning. We'll work on communication skills. Emotional recognition! All the soft skills your species has neglected. I started gathering the puzzle pieces. For now, you're dismissed. Get some rest. Process what happened today. The juveniles filed out slowly, some already clustering together, talking. Actual, voluntary social interaction. Small victory. Fragile, but real. Rika approached me before leaving. Sarah Chen, may I ask a question? Of course. Kadari says the Kavari destroyed your world, killed your hatchling.
You should want us to suffer.
To fail. Yet you teach us to be better. I do not understand this choice. I looked at the small, scarred juvenile who'd been marked for death because she wasn't fast enough at simulated killing, who'd just led her table to success by offering quiet observations nobody else had noticed. Because you're a child, I said simply. You didn't destroy New Terra. You didn't kill my daughter. You're just a kid trying to survive in a system that's designed to eliminate anyone who doesn't fit a specific narrow standard. And I can't look at you and see an enemy. I just see someone who needs help. This is love? Helping those who do not deserve it? But yeah, part of love is helping people even when they haven't earned it. Even when you don't get anything in return. Even when it hurts. Rika's plates flickered through colors I couldn't identify. I think I would like to learn this. Love. Even though it seems painful. It is painful. It's also the best thing we're capable of. I gestured toward the door. Go on. Tomorrow we tackle emotional vocabulary. I was alone in the classroom with scattered puzzle pieces and the strange weight of hope I didn't quite trust. My tablet chimed. Message from the Queen. Report on first session requested. I typed back 30 juveniles learning to talk to each other. Small progress. No eliminations. We'll continue. The response came immediately. Cathara reports significant deviation from standard methodology. Traditionalists are concerned. I am intrigued. Proceed. I put the tablet away and looked around the empty classroom. Circular tables where there should have been isolation stations. Open space where there should have been barriers. 30 juveniles who had names now instead of just designations. Revolution started small, with tiny acts of defiance against systems that had calcified into cruelty, with choosing to believe that change was possible, even when evidence suggested otherwise. I thought about my daughter, about how she'd believed everyone deserved kindness, how she'd drawn flowers for neighbors and smiled at strangers and approached the world with fearless love. I'm trying, baby, I whispered to the empty room. I'm trying to make something good from what was taken. I hope that's okay. The room didn't answer, but I felt fractionally less alone anyway. Tomorrow I'd teach 30 juveniles about emotions, about naming feelings and sharing them, about the radical vulnerability required for genuine connection. Tonight I'd cry for my daughter and hate the species that killed her and somehow keep moving forward anyway, because that was the deal. Because love demanded it. Because there was no other choice except surrender, and I was too stubborn for that. I turned off the lights and headed back to my quarters, carrying the weight of impossible responsibility and the fragile thread of hope that maybe, possibly, this insane gamble might actually work.